Interesting number on the Knicks against the Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder this season, the three best teams in the NBA. New York is 0-7 against those three teams. How much trouble are the New York Knicks in? Are they now officially kind of a tier below everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel vindication because I have more than a few friends from New York, having lived there for 20 years. And I went on Fox Sports earlier last week and said, look, I think there's a pretty clear division that the Knicks are below the Cavs and Celtics. And I got a lot of both, not just public, but privately, which is the one I care about, from my friends on my text chains being like, why are you talking about that? And then guess what happened? I just don't think there's a question. And I don't think this was that hard to foresee. They're not as good. And there's a lot of ways they're not as good. But the biggest thing is obviously defensively. And for a Tibbs team, this is the stuff that's the numbers are almost shocking when you look at where they're ranked defensively overall, right in the middle of the pack. And then once they get up against top 10 offenses, they are either dead last or 29th in the league, depending on the day that you look up the stats, against top 10 offenses. A Tom Thibodeau team and a team that played as well as it did defensively last year.
Great defensively. Top 3 last year, I believe.
Falling apart when anyone good applies pressure to them. And that is why going into the weekend for me, it wasn't hard to see what was about to happen and why I'm not surprised then about what happened. Because you've got offenses in Cleveland and Boston that know what they're doing and have multi-layer attacks, and you have a defense that has shown they do not know what they're doing. They are not able to get it done, and it's not just Mitchell Robinson's not there yet.
Let me ask you that. Why do you think they're not able to get it done? Like, does it all boil down to the fact that Karl Towns is really bad on defense? Because on paper, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, these are 3 high-level perimeter defensive players, 2 of which were on the team last year that was top 3 in the NBA in most defensive categories. Like, is it as simple as that? Like, I'm not being glib about it, because the Celtics game, I was looking at some of the numbers. They put Towns in pick and roll 50 times, or put the Knicks in pick and rolls 50 times during that game. The bread and butter, some of the clips that I was watching on social media, like of Kristaps Porzingis getting wide open looks or Cutters getting wide open looks. Like, teams have figured out how to run offense against them. Just put Cat in pick and rolls and watch the mayhem ensue.
Yes, because it is a case where people are like, oh, well, it's not just at this position, but the entire offensive attack goes to its weakest point. It's like water going down a drain, right? So once you plug up a drain in one place, then everything else becomes stronger. Karl-Anthony Towns is an exceptional basketball player. He's really good. I think that because of a lot of the other things around him.
He's going to make an All-NBA team this year, no question.
Sometimes people forget that he is just, if you line up everyone who plays in the NBA, he is very, very good. He is an offensive center. He's not a good defensive player. And that's okay. He's never pretended to be when he's made these crazy brags about how he's the best what does he say? Best shooting big man?
Best shooting big man of all time.
That was not best defensive shooting big man of all time.
Dirk Nowitzki might want a word, but yeah.
Yes, of course. But my point is, even his outrageous claims are not about defense. And that obviously we saw what happened in Minnesota. They had to go out and get Rudy, right? So when New York made this trade, I don't know if they thought that Robinson was going to be there for more of the season than he has been. I don't know if they thought that would be enough. I don't know if they just decided that, especially with bringing Bridges in, the perimeter defense that they could get would be enough, that the impact of having Karl there wouldn't be the drain where all the water flowed down to. But clearly, it hasn't been. And so I've given Bridges his adjustment period. I actually think he has adjusted now after a rocky start to the beginning of the season. I'm curious what happens when Robinson comes back, although a player coming off of that long an injury absence.
For, what, 2/3, 3/4
How
of the season?
good is he going to be?
You don't step back into a high-pressure situation and be the 30-minute per game guy that he could be under ordinary circumstances.
So this might, look, New York
like if he can play, playing him alongside Towns should help.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than you saw what happened with Towns and Rudy. Like, you got a big man that can defend the rim and do a whole bunch of different things. Theoretically, that should help. But you're not going to get the best of Mitchell Robinson. I'm sorry. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get anything close to the best you can get from that guy.
No. So I just think this season, with the length of time he's been out, with the trades that you made that then required someone like him to be in the lineup and he hasn't been, you kind of have to look at the season and be like, great, I hope we make a nice little run in the playoffs. We maybe get through to the second round. Philadelphia has fallen apart, not just this year, but we'll talk about them, I believe, coming up, in a way that potentially in the future, you're really only behind 1 to 2 other teams. If this ends up being an adjustment year because they brought in all these new pieces and then they played together a season and they had this major injury with Robinson, and then next year they're more ready to go and they make some tweaks around the edges, I don't think that's a disaster scenario for New York. I think New York is still in a really good position. I just don't think that right now, as constructed, or even with a has been gone 2/3 of the season, Mitchell Robinson coming back, they are going to be competitive in the East to get to the finals. I don't. Could they sneak in there? Maybe, of course. Again, we were just talking about Dallas and Minnesota, but like from last year. But I
Yeah,
just
but Boston cooks them.
no,
And
of
right now they're
course.
set up for that
Yeah.
second round series with the Celtics.
Exactly.
And
So that to me
that's
is
just a horror
a good
series
little
for them.
run to get into the second round, lose in the second round. Hopefully come back next year with a tweak here and there and healthy players.
What's the tweak
and
though?
see
Like
what you
I
can
get
do.
that, like Mitchell Robinson, bringing him back for a year. Like they miss Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yes.
Like they miss him bad. Like does him coming back and giving them 65 healthy games going like is he that big a difference maker? Because this team is kind of landlocked right now. They gave away their draft capital to get Mikal Bridges, to get Karl Anthony Towns. This is who they are. They're Jalen Brunson's locked in long term. You know, you'll get Bridges signed to a long term deal, I'm sure, at some point. Like it's kind of who they are.
But don't you think that this team could also benefit from beefing their bench back up a little bit?
I think Tibbs going to play him? Like, play those guys?
I mean, look, I already, by the way, speaking of you and our New York friends,
yes,
there is already.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Yep. Fire Tibbs.
Oh, well, he did send.
This basketball season, when your favorite stars score buckets, we're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog. To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats: points, assists, rebounds, and more. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 with just your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at the Lakers' schedule and picking Luka Doncic for higher than 22 points and LeBron James for higher than 7 assists. It still sounds weird saying those names with the LA Lakers. So download the Underdog app and sign up now using the code OPENFLOOR to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun today when you sign up with the promo code OPENFLOOR. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
He sent Cat back into that game. Like Cat was hobbling off the court in the fourth quarter of that game, and he sends him back in.
Fire
what are we
Tibbs.
doing?
Fire Tibbs.
I don't believe. Yeah,
Go.
Tibbs. I love Tibbs, and he is an excellent coach. But like some of the decision making, the in-game decision making to stretch these guys out is just brutal. Like there is no reason Cat should have gone back into that game.
But what do you think actually happens there? Because I don't think Leon Rose is firing Tibbs. Even first of all, you and I, neither of us are sitting here saying that he should be fired. So I want to clarify that. By the way, I'm imitating my New York friends. I am not in any way saying that. Given that nobody thinks he should get fired, not us, not Leon Rose, do you think there is a tweak that Leon can talk to Tibbs about? Or do you think Tibbs is always going to be Tibbs and is never going to change?
I think he's always going to be Tibbs. I don't know how you... I mean, if anyone could do it, it would be Leon, who's got the long relationship with him, goes back to his agent days. But I think Tibbs is going to Tibbs. This is just kind of who he's going to be. And look, I do think that the lesson learned from this year is that whether it's Mitchell Robinson or some other big, you have a ceiling on this team if you're playing Cat at 5. It does make you dynamic offensively. They're an elite offensive team, and Cat being the 5 is among the reasons, but the gap is so wide between what they are offensively and what they are defensively, and nobody wins like that. Like the worst you can kind of be defensively to be a championship team is middle of the pack. That's what the Nuggets were 2 years ago. They're like 14th or 15th in defensive efficiency. You don't necessarily have to be top 10 in both categories, but you can't be worse than middle of the pack. If you are bottom third in the NBA in defense, you aren't winning anything in today's NBA.
Or say 29th or 30th against the best teams in the league.
That's
really
a part of the problem.
Cannot.
0-7 against the good teams out. The Celtic game was actually in a way more painful than the Cavs game. Like the Cavs game was bad for 50 different reasons. Like it was a wipeout altogether. But watching the Celtics run pick and roll over and over and over again against them, like.
But this can't be a surprise. I
mean, a little bit, I guess. Like I didn't expect them. Look, Tibbs knew what he was getting into with Cat. He coached him before, and Cat has exceeded. Cat's been better his second go around with Tibbs. I didn't expect them to be this bad defensively, just because they are so tough with guys on the perimeter. That
I
can
agree.
defend.
I am surprised they're this bad all the way around. Although again, I'm starting to sort of see with them, it feels a little bit like either the tide has risen or sunk versus on the boats. But as we say, it can't be a surprise. Oh, gee, you can't be a championship team that plays Cat at the 5.
Yeah.
Like we know. Anyone who didn't know going into the season, we know.
Yeah. I mean, look, we did get a little bit fooled in the playoffs last year with the way he played against Denver. Played well against Jokic. But he was defending Jokic for a lot of those stretches.
He was, but also, again, you had other people on the floor. You only have to do certain things if you also are playing with Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
It's
going to be a tough second round.
There's a reason Minnesota brought Gobert in.
Yes.
If you have any questions about what Cat can and can't do defensively.
Could be one of those trades that don't work out for either team. Like, really, like I've been more bullish on the trade for the Knicks than Minnesota, mostly because I don't think they should have broken up a conference finals team. Money be damned.
Yeah.
But like, if the Knicks get beat in the second round again, did it really help them? Did it make them any better? Did breaking up the Nova Knicks,
Again, I it's okay to me to be third best in the conference. I don't feel like that's.
I think Knicks fans feel that way.
You can't win every year.
They haven't won since 72.
I get it. I'm just saying, that's true. I just mean that, like, when you look at some of the other teams, again, we are about to talk about Philadelphia. You could be a Sixers fan.
True.
It could be worse. Or, I grew up in Washington, D.C. You could be a Wizards fan.
I can't even watch
where
Wizards
they
games.
haven't even, I think it's been, 50 years since they won anything? Or
I watched the Wizards
anything?
game the other night just to see Marcus Smart in a Wizards uniform was just weird to see.
Right? Or even a Magic fan where you're sitting there like, oh my God, Banchero. Actually, maybe not as good as we thought he would. I mean, there's fans all over this league who are not in as good a position as the New York Knicks are.
Yes.
And yes, it would be great if the Knicks could finally win. You and I both feel that would be amazing for the league, and not just people who are fans of the Knicks specifically. It would just be so much fun to be in the Garden with all that energy again and to feel like New York had something there. But they're just not in any. I mean, they're in the top 20% of satisfied fans in the league. I just can't get that upset about this being, quote, a non-title year.
Yeah.
But it's not a wasted year. It's still a good year.
Boston may not be Boston forever. You know, they may have to break that up, team up eventually. I just when I look at the Knicks, though, I just think, is there a ceiling on them that is below NBA finalist? Like, is there a tweak, whether it is a bench player or a big to play alongside Cat, a healthy Mitchell Robinson, for example? Like, does that push them into a championship tier? Like, I don't know. I don't know if with this team with Cat and Brunson, who's okay defensively, not great, but like he's what he is there a ceiling on that type of team? I kind of feel like the answer is yes.
I just don't know if it's that firm in the NBA, because almost some years go totally chalk and it's all what we expect.
Yeah.
But more years than not, there is a Dallas Mavericks in the finals, or there is a team that we don't expect, or the matchup. They play a team plays the Thunder, and the Thunder should be better, but they're just a little bit still too young and inexperienced, and something goes in the other direction, and all of a sudden the Warriors have won a series that you wouldn't expect them to win against a team that was favored to win the whole thing. I mean, it's just I'm just not sure that the structure is ever that firm in this league that you say, oh, this team can't get that far. Do I think that the Knicks are getting that far this year? I don't, because we've seen what's in front of them and we've seen who they are. But I do think that with some tweaks, this team is not that far away.
By the way, last word on the Knicks, lost a Knicks legend this week. Al Troutwig passes away. I got to know that guy a little bit early on in my career when he was working for MSG. One of the great pipes in broadcasting history. Did a little bit of tennis too, a little bit of everything out there.
And
boxing
very
as
matched
well.
To his city, right?
Yeah, he was a New Yorker
guy,
through and through.
right?
Yeah.
So yes, thought for him for sure.
Yeah, the great Al Troutwig passed away.